Chris Hoy, Laura Muir, Andy Murray. International icons representing the very best our country has to offer. But there is a Scottish superstar more successful than all of them, Donald Dinnie.
He was known as the greatest athlete of the 19th century. Historians have described him as that. He's best known as a kind of weightlifter, a strongman, but actually he was really outstanding across a number of different sports.
It's fascinating the actual variety of sports that he was a champion at. It wasn't just track and field, he was an expert across the board.
Throwing the hammer, tossing the caber, but also things like the hurdles and sprinting and things that you wouldn't really expect for someone to be that substantially built to be that good at.
He could take challenges on, not just in Scotland, but he went round the world.
One of 10 children, Donald Dinnie was born in Aboyne in Aberdeenshire in 1837. Like his four brothers, Donald worked as a stonemason alongside his father, but his heart was set on a very different career. Dinnie began his athletic career at the age of 16, wrestling local champ David Forbes. Dinnie destroyed his opponent, winning the match and the prize money of £1.
I think he was genetically gifted. I think he came from a kind of very strong farming stock, so he was already kind of very muscular naturally, and then he built on that and became even stronger through training.
He was a talented all-rounder and went on to compete in an array of different sports, including putting the stone, hammer throwing, weightlifting, and of course, caber tossing.
He was so good that it's been said that if he had been around at the times of the modern Olympics, which started in 1896, he would actually have managed to achieve 7 gold medals across a range of different sports.
Over about a 50-year sporting career, Donald acquired many, many medals. We're fortunate enough to have about 59 of them in our collection here in Aberdeen. These 59 medals reflect some £28,000 in prize money that he earned over his career, which in contemporary terms is a phenomenal sum of money. And he won over 11,000 different sporting contests and championships, so he was quite the man.
Dinnie performed internationally in North America, Australia and New Zealand, and was declared the all-round champion athlete of the world.
He was sponsored by the American and Canadian Caledonian societies to travel out and take part in their Highland Games. So he's quite the Scottish sporting ambassador and an icon of his time.
He was also incredibly media savvy. So we know about him because of his relationships that he built up with the media, so with the press, but he also used it to get sponsorship. So we think of sports stars nowadays as being quite groundbreaking in getting sponsorship deals, but actually he was one of the first to do that.
But Dinnie is best known for an incredible feat of strength when in 1860 he carried 2 boulders with a combined weight of 330 kilograms across the Potarch Bridge. That's the equivalent of carrying a 25-stone man in each hand. The stones themselves were originally used as counterweights to help maintain the bridge, but after they'd served their purpose, were placed back onto the banks of the River Dee and forgotten about. Decades later, after years of searching, the stones were found in the long grass by David Webster, who returned them to where they sit today.
But I thought, no, the Dinnie stones, what happened to them? So I went up to round about where they would be. Now, I thought, they're not going to carry these things very far. So where would they go? Where would they dump them or something like that? And then I thought, well, maybe they just let them drop off the bridge. Went in there and it took about, I would say, over an hour going and just about fed up of looking. Suddenly I saw this thing underneath a shrub. And I thought, wait a minute, we've got the Dinnie stones, And we were over the moon.
Following David's rediscovery of the stones, people have flocked to Potarch from far and wide to see if they too can match Dinnie's feat of strength, including some famous faces.
Yeah, my name's James Crossley, I'm here lifting the Dinnie stones and I used to be hunter on Gladiator. I found out about this a couple of years ago and I was training for it and just to do a little tour of Scotland, and I kind of thought, maybe I could get the record at this. So I trained last year for 4 months, all I thought about, all I did, and you know, that's where it came from, really, seeking that challenge, and last year I got the world record.
Despite his multiple achievements and successes, Dinnie struggled financially in later life and continued performing into his 70s just to make ends meet.
I think he actually ended his days in London, so he didn't stay in Scotland the whole time. And at one point opened a chip shop, I think, from what I can gather, towards the end of his life, because he did actually, towards the end of his life, he was in poverty.
On April 2nd, 1916, Dinnie passed away at his home in London at the age of 78. In his obituary, the New York Times called Dinnie the greatest athlete Scotland ever produced, a sentiment that resonated throughout the world.
He had a charisma about him. He was tough, he was rough, he didn't mince his words.
I don't know, I just had this image of him as being a bit of a wheeler dealer because he was such an entrepreneur and pushing his own agenda and his own brand. I think he must have been quite an outgoing character to do that.
He'd be a good person to spend a night out with. Full of stories.
Today, his name lives on as people come from all over the world to lift the Dinnie stones and emulate his astonishing achievement.